Let's talk about the ear and its two functions. Let's talk about the parts first. The ear is divided into three parts. The outer part amplifies sound, which means it makes it bigger. The middle has the same function. It also amplifies sound. And then the inner ear is where hair cells convert stimuli into action potentials. So the outer ear consists of the pinna, the auditory canal, and the tympanum, or eardrum. The middle ear contains three bones called ossicles. It also has a tube connecting the ear to the throat called the Eustachian Tube. The inner ear has semicircular canals for balance, a cochlea for hearing, and then information from the cochlea travels through the auditory nerve to the temporal lobe. The two functions of the ear are balance and hearing. The Eustachian tube is needed for both hearing and balance. It is responsible for equalization of pressure. The Eustachian tube connects the throat to the middle ear. When sneezing, swallowing, or yawning, the Eustachian tubes open. This keeps air pressure the same on both sides of the eardrum, allowing it to vibrate properly. If the Eustachian tubes are blocked, it can cause pain as the tympanum is stretched, disrupting hearing and causing problems with balance. Let's talk about balance. The semicircular canals are three tiny fluid-filled tubes in the inner ear that help keep balance during head and body rotation. When the head moves, the liquid inside the semicircular canals sloshes around, causing the hair cells to send an action potential through sensory neurons to the cerebellum, which we know is responsible for balance. Hearing. Sound waves are funneled into the auditory canal by the pinna. The tympanum or eardrum vibrates and sends the vibrations through the tiny bones, the ossicles, in the middle ear, transferring the sound vibrations into the cochlea of the inner ear. Sound vibrations are carried through the fluid in the cochlea. Movement of fluid makes the hair cells in the organ of Corti vibrate. The hair cells convert the vibrations to action potentials that are sent through the auditory nerve to the temporal lobe, where the signals are then transferred or translated into sounds. Let's look at a close-up of the organ of Corti. Here we have the cochlea. If we take a cross-section of it, then we see the inside has two big canals. That's what are filled with fluid. And then the very center is the organ of Corti. This is where hair cells convert vibrations into action potentials. Close-up of the organ of Corti shows that there are hair cells within it that vibrate. Those are the sensory receptors that convert the vibrations into action potentials, what are then sent through the auditory nerve to the temporal lobe. Remember, the ear has three parts: the outer ear, everything up to and including the tympanum; the middle ear, which are the ossicles and Eustachian tube; and then the inner ear. Interesting fact, at the base of the cochlea, it is narrower and tuned for high frequency sounds or high pitched sounds, and then at its apex, it is wider and tuned for low frequencies. Pathway of sound through the ear travels from the pinna through the auditory canal, causes the tympanic membrane or tympanum to vibrate, which then sends vibrations through the ossicles to the cochlea, and then through the auditory nerve to the temporal lobe. And this spells pat-o-cat. Hearing loss is almost always due to aging and loud noises. Aging and exposure to loud noise cause damage to the hair cells in the cochlea, and electrical signals aren't transmitted as efficiently to the temporal lobe. Treatments for hearing loss. Hearing aids can't restore normal hearing. They improve hearing by amplifying sounds. Cochlear implants restore hearing by converting sound into electrical impulses and sending them directly into the auditory nerve. Let's look at how this works. So a microphone takes in the sounds, the sound processor sends it to the transmitter and receiver, and then that's sent through right to the cochlea. So the cochlear implant has 4 main parts: a microphone, which picks up sound from the environment, a speech processor, which selects and arranges sounds picked up by the microphone, a transmitter and receiver stimulator, which receives signals from the speech processor and convert them into electric impulses, and electrodes, which collect the impulses from the stimulator and send them to the brain. So let's talk about the parts of the ear that it corresponds to. So where the sounds are picked up in the ear is everything in the outer and middle ear. So the pinna, auditory canal, tympanic membrane, and ossicles. Next, the speech processor selects and arranges sounds picked up by the microphone. That would be the cochlea, or specifically the organ of Corti, where hearing happens. Next, the transmitter and receiver stimulator receive signals from the speech processor and convert them into electric impulses. That would be the hair cells. And finally, the electrodes which collect the impulses from the stimulator and send them to the brain would be the auditory nerve.